It was a Tuesday morning like any other in Dallas, Texas. The streets were alive with the subtle hum of the city cars rolling by, the faint chatter of pedestrians, and the occasional trill of birds punctuating the urban soundtrack. Life moved steadily, predictably. In a quiet corner of the city, nestled among glass-fronted offices and boutique stores, stood the Haven, a restaurant celebrated for its contemporary twist on Southern cuisine. Daniel Harper stepped through its polished glass doors just as he had planned. His charcoal gray suit was sharp but understated, paired with a well-worn leather briefcase. To the casual observer, Daniel exuded the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime in such settings. He did not walk with the arrogance of entitlement, nor the hesitance of unfamiliarity. He simply belonged. Yet, the atmosphere inside the Haven shifted as soon as he entered. It was not overt. No gasps of surprise. No dramatic halts in conversation. But Daniel noticed the brief pauses in movement. The sidelong glances exchanged between staff members. And the way the air seemed to grow heavier, laden with something unspoken. At the host stand, a young woman with strawberry blonde hair tied back in a neat ponytail barely looked up as Daniel approached. Her name tag read Madison. Her expression was neutral at first but shifted subtly as her gaze flicked over him, scanning from his polished shoes to his dark skin. Her lips pressed into a thin line, the kind that said more than words ever could. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone crisp and devoid of warmth. "Yes," Daniel replied, his voice steady, polite. "Table for one, please." Madison hesitated, her fingers tapping lightly on the counter. She glanced behind her at the half-empty dining room, where sunlight poured through tall windows onto neatly arranged tables. The restaurant was far from full, but she made no move to lead him in. Instead, she crossed her arms and offered a terse, "We're full. You'll have to wait." Daniel's brow lifted ever so slightly, but his tone remained composed. "That's fine," he said. "I'll wait." He moved to the small waiting area by the window and settled into one of the leather chairs. For 20 minutes, he sat quietly, his fingers brushing over the leather handle of his briefcase. He glanced around occasionally, observing the faint smiles and easy laughter exchanged between other patrons and the staff. It was a kind of hospitality he did not receive. He caught snippets of whispers from behind the host's stand, just enough to sense their subject, though not their specifics. Once or twice, Madison's gaze flicked toward him, her expression unchanged. The minutes ticked by, stretching into a kind of silent test of endurance. Finally, Daniel stood and approached the host's stand again. Madison barely acknowledged him. "Any updates on my table?" he asked, his voice calm, though a trace of firmness had crept in. Madison sighed audibly, her irritation poorly concealed. "Look," she said, her tone sharp and dismissive. "I don't know what you're trying to pull, but this isn't the kind of place for people like you." The words hung in the air, heavier than the morning heat pressing against the restaurant's windows. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Daniel blinked, his expression unchanging. "Excuse me?" he asked, his voice low but sharp, like a knife slicing through the tension. "You heard me," Madison snapped, her voice rising slightly as she gestured toward the door. "You need to leave." Several diners turned to look, their curiosity piqued. A murmur rippled through the room as eyes darted between Daniel and Madison. Daniel's gaze shifted briefly to the dining room, where a few customers shook their heads in quiet disbelief. Before he could respond, A man approached. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a no-nonsense air that suggested authority. His name tag read Jack. "Is there a problem here?" Jack asked. Though his tone and expression made it clear he believed there was and that he already knew who was at fault. Madison gestured toward Daniel, her voice laced with indignation. "This man is refusing to leave." Jack turned his gaze to Daniel, his expression stern. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Daniel took a deep breath, visibly reining in his frustration. His voice remained steady, deliberate. "I'd like to speak to the manager." Jack folded his arms across his chest, a faint smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "I am the manager," he replied, his tone tinged with smugness. Daniel nodded slowly, his composure unwavering. "Then you might want to double-check the name on the lease," he said. "Because this is my restaurant." The room fell into stunned silence. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Madison's jaw dropped, and Jack's face turned pale. The unspoken assumptions and prejudices that had fueled the past half hour unraveled in an instant, leaving nothing but silence and the weight of realization. Daniel reached into his briefcase and pulled out his phone. With a few taps, he displayed an email bearing the Haven's official letterhead, confirming his position as owner and CEO. The truth was undeniable. And yet, the moment hung precariously in the air. A quiet testament to the friction of progress in a world still grappling with its shadows. The silence that followed Daniel's revelation was profound, broken only by the faint clinking of silverware from the far end of the dining room. Jack's arms slowly dropped to his sides, the confidence draining from his posture. Madison took an instinctive step back, her earlier bravado replaced by visible unease. "You," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. Her tone carried disbelief, as though the truth Daniel had presented defied the reality she thought she understood. Daniel stood there, phone still in hand, his expression calm but firm. "Yes," he replied simply, his voice as steady as the weight of the moment. He made no effort to gloat, no dramatic gestures to revel in their discomfort. It wasn't necessary. The truth had spoken for itself. The other diners were no longer murmuring. Instead, their silence was watchful, almost reverent, as if they understood that they were witnessing something significant. A few glanced at Madison and Jack with disapproval, while others met Daniel's gaze with quiet support. Madison stammered, her face flushing. "This has to be a mistake," she said, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the edge of her apron. "It can't. I mean, I didn't know." "You didn't know what?" Daniel interrupted, his tone still measured but with a sharper edge now. "That a black man could own a place like this?" The question lingered, not just for Madison, but for everyone in the room. It wasn't a question of anger, it was a question of understanding. A quiet demand for her to reflect on the assumptions that had shaped her actions. Jack finally found his voice. "Mr. Harper," he began, his tone awkward, conciliatory. "I didn't mean." "Save it." Daniel cut in, his words deliberate and precise. "Your actions spoke louder than anything you could say now." For a moment, the weight of the truth seemed too much for either of them to bear. Madison looked down at the floor, her hands twisting nervously, while Jack's gaze darted around the room as though searching for an escape. Daniel turned to face the remaining staff, his voice now directed at them. "This restaurant was built to be a place where everyone feels welcome," he said, his words steady but imbued with quiet authority. If any of you think otherwise, if any of you believe that discrimination has a place here, you're welcome to leave right now. The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Their expressions a mixture of guilt and discomfort. But no one moved. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the tension of unspoken thoughts and unacknowledged biases. From the dining room, a slow ripple of applause began. It wasn't loud or raucous, it was a measured acknowledgement of Daniel's stand. A quiet show of solidarity from those who understood the weight of what had just transpired. One of the diners, an older woman with silver hair and a warm smile, rose from her seat and approached Daniel. She extended her hand. And Daniel shook it gently. "Thank you," she said. Her voice sincere. "People need to see that there are consequences for this kind of behavior." Daniel nodded, his expression softening slightly. "It's not about consequences," he said. "It's about setting a standard. This place, this table is for everyone." Madison looked up then, her eyes wide with something that resembled regret, though she said nothing. Jack, meanwhile, seemed frozen. His lips pressed together in a thin line as though he were trying to hold back whatever he might say next. Daniel's voice cut through the silence again, steady as ever. "You're both fired," he said, his tone as matter-of-fact as if he were reading from a ledger. Madison's head snapped up. "You can't," she started. But Daniel's raised hand stopped her mid-sentence. "I absolutely can," he said. "And I just did." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Instead, he nodded stiffly, his shoulders slumping as he turned toward the door. Madison hesitated for a moment longer before following, her steps quick and unsteady. As the door closed behind them, the tension in the room seemed to ease slightly. The remaining staff stood a little straighter, and the diners resumed their conversations, though the undercurrent of what had just occurred lingered in the air. Daniel turned back to the staff. "We're going to do better," he said, his voice quieter now but no less firm. "Starting today." And with that, he walked toward the dining room, his footsteps measured and deliberate. The table that had been denied to him earlier was now his to claim, not just as a patron, but as the rightful owner of the space and all that it stood for. Outside, the city hummed on, unaware of the small revolution that had just taken place within the walls of the Haven. But for those who had witnessed it, the quiet act of standing firm against prejudice would not soon be forgotten. The events at the Haven might have ended within its glass walls that morning, but their echoes spread far and wide. By the afternoon, a patron's recording of the incident had found its way online, gaining traction on social media. At first, it was a few reposts, accompanied by comments of disbelief or support. By evening, the video had gone viral, drawing millions of views and sparking heated discussions across the country. Daniel Harper sat in his modest office at the back of the Haven, the low hum of his computer filling the room. The notifications on his phone came in waves, the screen lighting up with messages, emails, and news alerts. For a man who had long worked quietly behind the scenes, this sudden thrust into the public eye was disorienting. The video was straightforward. It captured Madison's curt dismissal, Daniel's calm but firm responses, and the final, quiet declaration of ownership that left the restaurant stunned. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting or theatrics, just the subtle tension of a moment that revealed more than words ever could. The comments online reflected a divided nation. Some praised Daniel for his composure, calling him a model of grace under pressure. Others, however, sought to downplay the incident, dismissing it as an overreaction or an isolated misunderstanding. Not everything is about race, one comment read. Another replied. You think they would have treated him that way if he were white? For Daniel. The truth wasn't in the comments but in the experience itself. It was in the way Madison had looked at him dismissive and distrustful before he had even spoken a word. It was in the quiet whispers. The sidelong glances. And the unspoken assumptions that had colored every interaction that morning. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. This wasn't the first time he had encountered prejudice. And he knew it wouldn't be the last. But this time was different. This time, he had a platform, a moment where his actions could speak louder than any words. The next day, reporters began calling. Local news stations wanted interviews. And even a few national outlets reached out. Daniel declined most requests, choosing instead to issue a simple statement. No one should ever feel unwelcome in a place that promises hospitality. At the Haven, we're committed to ensuring that every guest, regardless of their background, feels respected and valued. The statement was measured, free of accusations or anger. But its implications were clear. By the end of the week, the video had become a flashpoint in a broader conversation about racial bias in America. Talk show hosts debated it. Columnists wrote op-eds dissecting it. And community leaders used it as a call to action. Meanwhile, the Haven saw an unexpected surge in business. Customers, many of whom had never set foot in the restaurant before, came out to show their support. They praised Daniel for his composure, his firm but fair handling of the situation. One afternoon, an older black man approached Daniel after finishing his meal. His hair was gray, and his hands bore the marks of a lifetime of hard work. "Thank you," the man said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for all of us." Daniel nodded, humbled by the man's words. "I just did what felt right," he replied. "Sometimes," the man said, "what feels right is what's hardest to do." The support wasn't universal. Of course. There were whispers of discontent from some corners. Murmurs that Daniel had overreacted or that his actions had been too harsh. But he didn't dwell on the criticism. Instead, he focused on what mattered most, ensuring that the Haven lived up to its promise. Behind the scenes, Daniel worked with his staff to implement mandatory diversity training. He didn't just want to address what had happened, he wanted to prevent it from happening again. One evening, as the restaurant buzzed with the quiet energy of a busy dinner service, Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the city beyond. The sky was painted with the soft hues of dusk, and the lights of Dallas began to flicker to life. He thought about the many layers of the moment that had brought him here, the quiet tension, the unspoken biases, and the power of simply standing firm. He thought about Madison and Jack, and how their actions reflected not just personal failings but a broader, deeper issue woven into the fabric of everyday life. And he thought about the future. The Haven wasn't just a restaurant. It was a symbol. A place where people from all walks of life could come together over a meal, finding common ground at the table. For Daniel, the work was just beginning. But as he turned back to his staff, his face calm but resolute, he felt a quiet certainty. Change didn't come in sweeping gestures or grand speeches. It came in moments like this, in the quiet, deliberate choice to do what was right. The world outside continued as it always did. But inside the Haven, something had shifted. It was subtle, like the first stirrings of a breeze before a storm. And Daniel knew, in his heart, that this quiet storm had the power to reshape more than just his restaurant. It had been a few weeks since the incident at the Haven. But its ripples continued to spread. The restaurant hummed with activity as new customers filled the tables. Many of them drawn by the viral story. The influx was welcome. But Daniel Harper knew that the real work was happening behind the scenes. He had doubled down on his commitment to making the Haven a place where everyone felt welcome. Diversity training sessions became a staple for his staff. Not as a punitive measure, but as an opportunity for education and reflection. Daniel believed in creating an environment where mistakes could lead to growth. Not just shame. It wasn't about punishment, it was about progress. One morning, as Daniel reviewed invoices in his office, an email notification popped up on his screen. The subject line read, "An apology and a confession." The sender's name, Jack Carter, gave him pause. For a moment, Daniel considered ignoring it. What more could Jack possibly have to say? But curiosity won out. And he clicked. The email was long. Its tone starkly different from the defensive posture Jack had taken weeks earlier. It began with an apology. Not just for his behavior, but for something far deeper. "Mr. Harper," it read. "I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth." Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes scanning the words that followed. Jack admitted that his actions during the incident hadn't been entirely his own. He revealed that Charles Bradford, the restaurant's previous owner, had orchestrated the confrontation. According to Jack, Charles had approached him shortly after Daniel purchased the Haven. He had offered Jack a substantial sum of money to sabotage the restaurant's reputation, hoping to force Daniel into selling it back at a loss. It was a calculated move, exploiting both Jack's financial struggles and his implicit biases. "I let my greed and prejudice cloud my judgment," Jack wrote. "But after seeing how you handled that day, and the backlash that followed, I realized I was wrong. I hope you can forgive me. I'll understand if you can't. But I thought you deserved to know the truth." Daniel sat still for a long moment after finishing the email. The room felt quiet. Almost unnaturally so. As if the weight of the revelation had absorbed every sound. Anger stirred within him, not just at Jack, but at Charles. At the lengths some people would go to protect their sense of power and control. Yet beneath the anger was something deeper, a quiet resolve. He forwarded the email to his attorney, attaching a brief message, "We need to talk." The following morning, Daniel met with his lawyer, Jordan Pierce, a sharp-eyed woman known for her no-nonsense approach. She had been instrumental in helping Daniel acquire the Haven, and her commitment to justice mirrored his own. Jordan read through the email, her expression growing more serious with every line. "This is damning," she said finally, looking up at Daniel. "If we can prove Bradford's involvement, this goes beyond personal conflict. This is corporate sabotage." Daniel nodded. "I don't want revenge," he said, his voice steady. "But I can't let this go. If he's willing to do this to me, who's to say he hasn't done it to others?" Jordan tapped her pen thoughtfully against the desk. "We'll need more evidence," she said. "Emails, financial records, anything that ties Bradford directly to this scheme. If Jack is willing to testify, that'll help. But it's not enough on its own." Over the next few days, Daniel and Jordan worked tirelessly to build their case. They uncovered a trail of emails between Jack and Charles, detailing the plan in chilling detail. One email from Charles stood out. "We can't let him think he belongs here. Make it impossible for him to succeed." The words were stark, stripped of any pretense. They reflected a mindset that Daniel had encountered before, though rarely in such blatant terms. It wasn't just about him as an individual, it was about what he represented. For Charles, Daniel's success was a threat. A challenge to a world order he had taken for granted. As the evidence mounted, Daniel felt the weight of the decision he had made. This wasn't just about holding Charles accountable, it was about standing against a system that allowed such actions to go unchecked. But he also knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. One evening, as Daniel closed up the restaurant, he found himself standing at the front door, gazing out at the city lights. The Haven had become more than a business to him, it was a symbol of resilience. A space that reflected his vision of inclusion and community. And now, it was at the center of a battle he hadn't chosen but couldn't walk away from. Daniel's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. He turned to see one of his staff members, a young server named Maya, standing nervously in the doorway. "Mr. Harper," she said hesitantly. "Can I talk to you?" Daniel nodded, gesturing for her to sit. Maya wrung her hands, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I just wanted to say thank you for standing up for us. For making this a place where we all feel like we belong." Her words caught Daniel off guard. But he smiled, his voice gentle. "It's not just about standing up," he said. "It's about building something better. That's the real work." As Maya left, Daniel felt a quiet sense of clarity. The fight ahead would be difficult. But it wasn't just his fight. It was for everyone who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong. And as he locked the door and turned off the lights, Daniel knew he was ready for whatever came next. The legal process began quietly, almost imperceptibly, as if it were another item on Daniel Harper's growing list of responsibilities. Meetings with his lawyer, Jordan Pierce, became a regular part of his schedule. Tucked between managing the Haven and navigating the ongoing public interest in his story. To the world outside, the restaurant bustled with life. Customers filled the tables daily, their laughter and conversation weaving together like the comforting hum of a familiar song. But behind the scenes, Daniel was engaged in a battle that felt heavier with each passing day. Jordan had been relentless in uncovering evidence against Charles Bradford. She had tracked financial records, retrieved internal emails, and even spoken with former employees of the Haven. Each thread pulling the larger scheme into clearer focus. Yet, as the pieces came together, Daniel couldn't help but feel the weight of it all, not just the personal betrayal, but the broader implications of what it represented. It wasn't about Charles alone. It was about a mindset. A system that allowed someone like him to believe that money and influence could erase accountability. One morning, Daniel sat in Jordan's office. A thick folder of documents spread across the table between them. The evidence was damning emails, bank statements, even a recorded phone call where Charles alluded to teaching him a lesson. Jordan leaned back in her chair, her sharp eyes meeting Daniel's. "This is solid," she said. "With this, we'll not only prove sabotage but make it clear that his actions were rooted in racial bias. That's going to resonate in court." Daniel nodded. But his expression remained calm, measured. "It's not about winning," he said quietly. "It's about accountability. I'm not looking to destroy him, Jordan. I just want to make sure this doesn't happen again to me or anyone else." Her gaze softened. "I know," she said. "But sometimes, holding someone accountable means taking them down. Are you ready for that?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the window. The Dallas skyline stretching beyond the glass. "I'm ready for whatever it takes," he said finally. Underscore 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 underscore. The courtroom was a stark contrast to the warm, inviting atmosphere of the Haven. Its high ceilings and muted tones exuded formality, a reminder of the gravity of what was at stake. Daniel sat at the plaintiff's table beside Jordan, his demeanor calm but focused. Across the aisle sat Charles Bradford, his sharp suit doing little to mask the tension in his posture. As the trial unfolded, the evidence against Charles painted a clear picture. Jordan presented emails where Charles referred to Daniel as a rookie who doesn't know his place. She highlighted financial transactions that showed payments to Jack Carter, marked as consulting fees. And she played a recording where Charles spoke candidly about his plan to push him out before he makes this place unrecognizable. Daniel watched Charles's reaction closely. At first, the man's expression remained stoic. But as the evidence mounted, cracks began to show. He shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening, his hands gripping the edge of the table. The defense tried to argue that the emails were taken out of context, that the payments were legitimate, that the recording was misleading. But the weight of the evidence was undeniable. When Daniel took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. He spoke clearly, his voice steady and unflinching. "This isn't about one man's actions," he said. "It's about a system that allows prejudice to fester in the shadows. It's about making sure that no one else has to face what I did, not just at the Haven, but anywhere." His words weren't angry or accusatory. They were quiet, deliberate, and deeply sincere, resonating with everyone in the room. Underscore 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 underscore. The verdict came swiftly. The judge ruled in Daniel's favor, ordering Charles to pay a substantial settlement and issuing a scathing statement about the misuse of power and the corrosive effects of discrimination. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, their cameras trained on Daniel as he emerged. He stopped briefly, offering a simple statement. "This isn't a victory for me," he said. "It's a step forward for everyone who believes in fairness, in dignity, and in the idea that we all deserve a seat at the table. The work isn't done, but today is proof that change is possible." Underscore 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 underscore. That evening, Daniel returned to the Haven. The dining room was bustling as usual, the hum of conversation filling the space. He walked to his usual table by the window, sitting alone for a moment to reflect. The legal battle had been draining, but it had also reinforced something he had always believed: change didn't come from grand gestures alone. It came from quiet, persistent effort. It came from standing firm in the face of injustice and refusing to let it define you. As he looked around the room, Daniel saw the faces of his staff diverse, vibrant, and united in their purpose. He saw customers from all walks of life, sharing meals and conversations, their differences fading into the background. The Haven wasn't just a restaurant. It was a testament to what was possible when people chose inclusion over exclusion. Understanding over judgment. For Daniel, the fight wasn't over. But in that moment, surrounded by the quiet, everyday acts of connection and community, he felt a sense of peace. The work continued. But the vision remained the same, a table where everyone was welcome. Months had passed since the courtroom battle ended. But for Daniel Harper, the lessons from that time lingered like a faint melody in the background of his daily life. The Haven continued to thrive. Now not just a restaurant but a symbol of what could be achieved when resilience met purpose. The dining room was alive with its usual rhythm one Friday evening. Tables were filled with conversations that overlapped like soft music, the laughter of friends, the clinking of glasses, the low murmur of shared stories. Yet, amid the ordinary, Daniel found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought him here. He stood near the kitchen, observing the flow of the staff as they moved with practiced ease. The new team included some of the most compassionate and talented people Daniel had ever worked with: servers, cooks, and hosts who embraced the restaurant's mission as much as its menu. "Mr. Harper," a voice interrupted his thoughts. Daniel turned to see Maya, the young server who had once thanked him for standing up for inclusion. Her expression was hesitant, almost apologetic. "There's someone asking to see you," she said. "He's at table 5. Daniel glanced toward the table and felt a flicker of surprise. Jack Carter sat there, his posture uncertain, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. Underscore 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 underscore. As Daniel approached, Jack stood awkwardly, extending a hand that trembled slightly. "Mr. Harper," Jack began, his voice quiet. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Daniel didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied Jack's face, older than he remembered, with lines that spoke of sleepless nights and heavy regrets. Finally, Daniel extended his own hand, shaking Jack's firmly but without warmth. "What brings you here, Jack?" Daniel asked, his tone calm but direct. Jack took a deep breath, his gaze dropping briefly to the table. "I wanted to apologize in person," he said. "The email, I meant every word of it. But I realized that words aren't enough. I needed to tell you face to face." Daniel nodded slowly, pulling out a chair to sit across from Jack. "Go on," he said. "I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I did." Jack continued. "The choices I made. The harm I caused, not just to you, but to everyone who looks to you as an example. I let my own biases, my own weaknesses, blind me. And I let Bradford manipulate me into something I'm not proud of." There was no defensiveness in Jack's tone, no attempt to justify his actions. Instead, his words carried the weight of a man who had come to terms with his own failings. "I don't expect your forgiveness," Jack said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I wanted you to know that I've changed, or at least, I'm trying to. I've been volunteering at an organization that works to address systemic racism. It's small, but it's a start." For a moment, Daniel didn't respond. He let Jack's words settle, feeling the sincerity behind them but also the lingering discomfort of old wounds. "Change isn't easy, Jack," Daniel said finally. "But it's necessary. And it starts with accountability." Jack nodded, his shoulders slumping slightly in relief. "Thank you," he said. "For hearing me out. And for showing me what real leadership looks like." Daniel stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "Take care of yourself, Jack," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "And take care of the work you've started. Underscore 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 underscore. Later that evening, as the restaurant began to wind down, Daniel sat at his usual spot by the window. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the dark sky, a reminder of the vastness of the world beyond the haven's walls. Sofia Martinez, his business partner, joined him, setting down 2 cups of coffee. "I saw you talking to Jack," she said, her tone neutral. Daniel nodded. "He came to apologize," he said simply. "And?" Sophia asked, tilting her head. "And I let him," Daniel replied. "It doesn't change what happened. But maybe it changes what happens next." Sophia smiled faintly, lifting her cup. "You're a better man than most," she said. "It's not about being better," Daniel said, his gaze distant. "It's about being better than yesterday." Underscore 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 underscore. The haven continued to grow in the months that followed, expanding to new locations across the city and beyond. Each new restaurant carried the same slogan etched above its doors: "Everyone is welcome at our table." For Daniel, the words weren't just a promise, they were a mission. He had seen how deeply prejudice could root itself in the everyday. How it could manifest in subtle, quiet ways that were easy to overlook. But he had also seen how kindness, resilience, and accountability could create ripples of change. One evening, as he locked up the original haven for the night, Daniel paused by the door. He thought about the countless stories that had unfolded within these walls, stories of struggle, reconciliation, and growth. And as he turned to walk into the quiet night, he carried with him the conviction that the fight for inclusion was not about grand victories, but about small, everyday choices. Choices that, over time, could reshape the world into a place where everyone truly had a seat at the table. The haven was no longer just a single restaurant. Over the past year, Daniel Harper had expanded the concept into 3 new locations across Texas, each bearing the same commitment to inclusion and community that had defined the original. Yet, with growth came new challenges. Ones that tested Daniel's vision in ways he hadn't anticipated. Underscore 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 underscore. One quiet morning, Daniel visited the newest location in Austin. It was nestled in a bustling neighborhood known for its blend of old and new, a mix of longtime residents and young professionals drawn to the city's vibrant culture. The restaurant had only been open a few weeks, but it was already thriving. As he stepped inside, Daniel felt the familiar hum of activity, the clatter of plates, the low buzz of conversation. and the faint notes of a jazz playlist weaving through it all. He greeted the staff warmly, taking a moment to observe the rhythm of the space. Near the entrance, a group of elderly patrons sat together, their laughter punctuating the air as they shared stories over coffee. Across the room, a young family enjoyed breakfast, the parents helping their toddler navigate a plate of pancakes. It was a scene Daniel loved, a microcosm of the community he hoped to build. But as he moved toward the back, he noticed a table where the energy felt different. Two young black men sat quietly, their body language subdued. Their server, a young woman with a polished appearance, seemed to hover near them but avoided direct engagement. She placed their coffee cups on the table with an almost mechanical precision, offering only the briefest smile before quickly moving away. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. It wasn't overt, but it was there, the subtle chill, the kind of discomfort he had come to recognize. Underscore 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 underscore. Later, Daniel called the server into his office. Her name was Erin, and she was new to the team. She entered hesitantly, her expression guarded. "Have a seat," Daniel said, his tone calm but firm. Erin sat down, fidgeting slightly. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Daniel folded his hands on the desk. "I noticed the way you interacted with a couple of our guests earlier," he said. "The two gentlemen near the back. Can you tell me about that?" Erin's face flushed slightly. I didn't mean anything by it," she stammered. "I just thought, well, they seemed like the kind of customers who might." She stopped herself, realizing too late where her words were headed. Daniel let the silence stretch for a moment, giving her space to reflect. Finally, he spoke. "Erin, I want you to understand something. This restaurant isn't just about serving food. It's about creating a space where everyone feels valued, no matter who they are or what assumptions someone might make about them." Erin's eyes dropped to her lap. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to offend anyone." "I believe you," Daniel said. "But intent isn't the only thing that matters. Perception matters, too. Those men came here to enjoy a meal, just like anyone else. If they didn't feel welcome, that's something we need to address." Erin nodded slowly. "I'll do better," she said. Daniel's tone softened slightly. "That's all I ask," he said. "This isn't about calling you out, it's about helping you see the bigger picture. We all have blind spots, Erin. The important thing is that we're willing to learn from them." Underscore 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 underscore. The next day, Daniel held a staff meeting to reinforce the restaurant's values. He spoke not as a reprimand but as a reminder, sharing stories of moments when unconscious bias had created unnecessary barriers. "We're all here because we believe in what this place stands for," he said. "But belief isn't enough. We have to live it every day, in every interaction." The staff listened intently, some nodding, others taking notes. Erin sat near the front, her expression thoughtful. Underscore 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 underscore. That evening, the two young men from the previous day returned. Daniel recognized them immediately and made a point to approach their table personally. "Good evening," he said warmly. "I'm Daniel Harper, the owner. I just wanted to thank you for coming back." One of the men smiled, his initial wariness fading. "We appreciate it," he said. "The food here is great." "I'm glad to hear that," Daniel replied. "And I want to make sure you always feel welcome here. If there's ever anything we can do better, please don't hesitate to let me know." The men exchanged a glance, their smiles growing. "Thank you," the other man said. "It means a lot." Underscore 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 underscore. As the evening wound down, Daniel sat by the window, watching the city lights twinkle against the dark sky. The challenges of running a business rooted in inclusivity were constant. But so were the rewards. He thought about Aaron, about the young men, about all the small moments that carried the weight of larger truths. Racism wasn't always loud or overt. Often, it was quiet, a hesitation, a glance, a missed opportunity to connect. But combating it required the same approach: quiet, deliberate, persistent effort. The table was growing, one chair at a time. And for Daniel, that was enough. The Haven had grown beyond Daniel Harper's original vision, becoming more than just a restaurant. Across its locations, the same phrase greeted guests at every entrance: "Everyone is welcome at our table." For some, it was a comforting invitation. For others, it was a quiet challenge to reconsider assumptions. But for Daniel, it was a promise, a commitment to creating spaces where inclusion wasn't just a goal but a way of life. Underscore 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 underscore. It was a rainy afternoon when Daniel visited the original Haven, the place where everything had begun. The restaurant was quieter than usual, the muted sound of rain tapping against the windows. Daniel walked through the space slowly, taking in the familiar details: the polished wood tables, the soft glow of pendant lights, the subtle hum of conversations. He had seen so many stories unfold here. First dates, family celebrations, quiet moments of reflection, each one a testament to the idea that food could bring people together, no matter their differences. Daniel made his way to his favorite table by the window, where a cup of coffee was waiting for him. Sofia Martinez joined him shortly after, her presence as steady and reassuring as always. "Do you ever think about what it took to get here?" she asked, her voice quiet. "All the time," Daniel replied. "But it's not just about the past. It's about what we're building for the future." Sophia smiled, nodding. "Speaking of the future, you've got someone waiting for you in the office." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Someone?" Sophia shrugged, her smile widening. You'll see. Underscore 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 underscore. In the office, Daniel found a young woman sitting nervously in one of the chairs. She stood as he entered, clutching a small notebook in her hands. "Mr. Harper," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for seeing me. My name is Rebecca." Daniel gestured for her to sit, taking the seat across from her. "What can I do for you, Rebecca?" he asked, his tone warm but curious. Rebecca hesitated, then opened the notebook, flipping to a page filled with neatly written notes. "I'm a journalism student," she said. "I'm working on a piece about the Haven. About what it represents. I wanted to hear your perspective. What made you decide to build something like this?" Daniel leaned back, a faint smile playing on his lips. "That's a big question," he said. "But I'll do my best to answer." He spoke about the early days, the challenges of breaking into an industry that wasn't always welcoming, and the moments of quiet resistance that had shaped his journey. He talked about the incident with Madison and Jack, the legal battle with Charles Bradford, and the lessons he had learned along the way. "But more than anything," he said, "I wanted to create a place where people could see each other as equals. Where the table was big enough for everyone." Rebecca listened intently, her pen moving swiftly across the page. When he finished, she looked up, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think things are really changing?" she asked. Daniel paused, considering his answer. "Change is slow," he said finally. "It's not always obvious. And it's rarely easy. But every small step matters. Every conversation. Every act of kindness. Every moment of accountability, it all adds up." Rebecca nodded, her eyes shining with quiet determination. "Thank you," she said, "for sharing your story and for doing what you do." Underscore 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 underscore. That evening, as the rain continued to fall, Daniel sat by the window again, watching the droplets trace paths down the glass. The city outside was alive with its usual rhythms. But Daniel's thoughts were quieter, focused on the journey ahead. The fight against prejudice wasn't one that could be won in a single moment. It required constant effort, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and the courage to imagine something better. But as he looked around the Haven, seeing the diverse faces of his staff and customers, Daniel felt a quiet sense of hope. The table was growing, one chair at a time. And while the work was far from over, he knew that every small step was worth it. The rain began to ease, the clouds giving way to a soft, golden light as the sun dipped below the horizon. For Daniel, it was a reminder, even in the midst of storms, there was always the possibility of something brighter ahead. And so, with quiet resolve, he rose from his seat, ready to continue the work of building a world where everyone had a place at the table.